The fluorescent lights of Riverside Community Center buzzed overhead as Marcus Williams approached the entrance, his campaign materials tucked under his arm. The evening air carried the scent of autumn leaves and anticipation. Tonight would change everything. He could feel it in his bones, the same way he'd felt it 20 years ago when he'd first run for city council in this small Michigan town. Two uniformed security guards stepped forward, their hands positioned strategically near their belts. The larger one, a man whose name tag read Thompson, held up a meaty palm. "Sorry, sir. Private event tonight. Invitation only." Marcus blinked, then laughed. It was the kind of laugh that came from disbelief rather than humor. "I'm Marcus Williams. I'm supposed to be on that stage in 15 minutes for the mayoral debate." He gestured toward the entrance where a banner reading Riverside Mayoral Candidate Forum hung prominently above the doors. Thompson's expression didn't change. "No Marcus Williams on my list." He tapped a clipboard with his thick finger. "Security protocol. Can't let anyone in without proper authorization." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Behind him, he could hear the murmur of gathering supporters, families who had driven from across the county to witness what they hoped would be a historic moment. Mrs. Chen, who ran the corner grocery store, had closed early to attend. The Johnson family had arranged babysitting for their 3 kids. Young college students from the university 30 miles away had organized carpools. "There must be some mistake," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "I've been registered for this debate for 3 months. I have the confirmation emails right here." He reached for his phone, but Thompson stepped closer, his partner flanking Marcus on the other side. "Step away from the entrance, sir," Thompson commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You're blocking the flow of legitimate attendees." Inside the community center, Marcus could see the familiar faces of longtime residents filing into the main hall. The local cable television crew was setting up their equipment. Cameras pointed toward an empty podium where 3 chairs sat waiting. 2 chairs would be occupied tonight. His would remain empty. "Marcus," called out Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, pushing through the crowd that had begun to gather. As the town's only pediatrician, she commanded respect across party lines. "What's going on here?" "These gentlemen are telling me I can't enter the debate I've been preparing for since July," Marcus replied, his voice carrying just enough to be heard by the growing crowd of supporters. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes flashed with anger. "This is ridiculous. Marcus, you show them your registration." "I tried." "They won't look at it." Marcus held up his phone, displaying the official confirmation email from the League of Women Voters, the organization sponsoring the event. Thompson's partner, whose badge identified him as Davis, spoke for the first time. "Ma'am, you need to move along. This is a security matter." Security matter. The voice belonged to James Mitchell, a Vietnam veteran who'd lived in Riverside for 40 years. "What kind of security threat does a high school principal pose? Marcus has been teaching our kids for 2 decades. The crowd was growing larger now, voices rising in confusion and anger. Marcus could see faces he recognized from parent-teacher conferences, from community barbecues, from the annual 4th of July parade, where he'd marched with the Education Association every year since 2003. "Stand back," Thompson shouted, his hand moving to his radio. "All citizens need to disperse immediately or face arrest for disturbing the peace." But the crowd wasn't dispersing. If anything, more people were arriving, drawn by the commotion. Marcus saw his campaign manager, Jennifer Walsh, pushing through the gathering crowd, her face flushed with exertion and fury. "Marcus, thank God you're still here. I've been calling you for 10 minutes. Jennifer thrust her phone toward him. "Look at this." On the screen was a text message from an unknown number. Debate canceled for security reasons. Alternative venue TBD. Do not approach community center. When did you get this? Marcus asked, his stomach dropping. 20 minutes ago. But I called the League of Women Voters. They said the debate is still on. They never sent this message. The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. Marcus looked at the security guards, at the crowd of his supporters being pushed back, at the community center where his opponent, incumbent Mayor Patricia Hendricks, was probably already seated comfortably on stage. "This is voter suppression," declared Angela Foster, a young lawyer who'd recently moved to Riverside. "This is exactly what my grandmother faced in Alabama in 1965. "Now hold on," Davis interrupted, his voice taking on a defensive tone. "Nobody's suppressing anything. We're just following orders." "Whose orders, Doctor?" Rodriguez demanded. Thompson and Davis exchanged glances. "HOA security protocols," Thompson said finally. "Homeowners Association has contracted us to provide security for community events." "The HOA doesn't run municipal elections," shouted Tom Harrison, a retired firefighter. "This is a League of Women Voters event." Marcus felt his phone buzzing. A text from his daughter, Maya, who was watching the live stream from her dorm room 3 hours away. "Dad, they're saying on the stream that you're a no-show. People are asking where you are." Inside the community center, the debate had begun. Through the glass doors, Marcus could see Mayor Hendricks at the podium, speaking confidently to an audience that included many of his supporters who had managed to get inside before the security blockade began. "We need to get this on record," Jennifer said, pulling out her phone to record. "Officers, can you state your names and the authority under which you're denying Mr. Williams' entry to a public forum? Turn that off." Thompson lunged toward the phone. "But Dr. Rodriguez stepped between them. "Don't you dare touch her. She has every right to record this." The crowd was now pressing closer, voices rising in a cacophony of anger and disbelief. Marcus could see other phones coming out, social media posts being typed, the moment being documented from multiple angles. "Everyone needs to calm down," Marcus said, his teacher's voice cutting through the chaos. "This isn't about me. This is about democracy. This is about your right to hear from all the candidates." "Damn right it is," called out Maria Santos, who cleaned offices downtown and had never missed a city council meeting in 5 years. "We drove here to hear what you have to say about the water situation, about the school funding. We have a right to hear from our candidate." Thompson was speaking rapidly into his radio now, calling for backup. Marcus could hear the tinny response. "Units en route. Maintain perimeter." "Perimeter," Marcus repeated. "Perimeter against what? Against citizens exercising their right to participate in democracy." The first police car arrived within minutes, its red and blue lights painting the evening crowd in alternating colors. Officer Janet Morrison emerged, someone Marcus recognized from high school basketball games where both their kids had played. "Janet," Marcus called out. "Thank goodness. Can you help us sort this out? These security guards are preventing me from participating in the mayoral debate." Officer Morrison looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting between Marcus and the security guards. "Marcus, I need you to move away from the entrance. We've got reports of a disturbance. The only disturbance is the interference with a democratic process." "Doctor," Rodriguez interjected. "Officer Morrison, you know Marcus. You know he's supposed to be in that debate." "I know Marcus," Morrison replied carefully. "But I also know I have to follow protocols. The security company has authority over this private event." "Private event." Angela Foster stepped forward, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "This is a public forum sponsored by a nonpartisan organization and held in a community center funded by taxpayer money. How is this private?" The question hung in the air, like smoke from a fire that was spreading beyond anyone's control. Marcus could see confusion creeping across Officer Morrison's face. The same expression he'd seen on students' faces when they realized the problem on the test was more complicated than they'd initially thought. A second police car arrived, then a third. The crowd was now blocking the street, people streaming out of nearby houses and businesses to see what was happening. Marcus recognized Mrs. Patterson from the library, the Kowalski family from down the street, even old Mr. Brennan, who rarely left his front porch. "This is getting out of hand," Jennifer whispered to Marcus. "Maybe we should consider legal action instead of pushing this tonight." "Legal action takes months," Marcus replied. "The election is in 3 weeks. If I don't participate in this debate, half the voters will think I was too afraid to show up." Inside the community center, the debate was continuing without him. Through the glass doors, Marcus could see Mayor Hendricks gesturing emphatically as she spoke about her vision for Riverside's future. The empty chair beside her served as a stark reminder of his absence. "Livestream is up to 3,000 viewers," announced Kevin Park, a college student who'd been documenting the confrontation on his phone. "People are sharing this everywhere. Riverside debate is trending." Marcus felt a mix of pride and frustration. The attention was exactly what his campaign needed, but not like this. He'd wanted to win based on his ideas, his vision for the community, not because of a controversy that made him look like a victim. "Mr. Williams," called out a voice from the crowd. It was Rebecca Chen, a local reporter for the Riverside Gazette. "Can you comment on why you're not inside participating in the debate?" Marcus looked at the crowd of supporters surrounding him, at the police cars with their flashing lights, at the security guards who continued to block the entrance. He thought about his 20 years of teaching, of the countless students he'd helped graduate, of the community he'd served on school boards and volunteer committees. "I'm not inside because I'm being prevented from entering by security guards who claim to be following HOA protocols," Marcus said clearly, his voice carrying over the crowd. "I have every legal right to be on that stage tonight. The people of Riverside have every right to hear from all the candidates." "Are you suggesting this is racially motivated?" Rebecca pressed. Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm suggesting that when security guards prevent a black candidate from participating in a public forum without any legitimate reason, people are going to draw their own conclusions." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Marcus could see phones recording his every word, social media posts being shared in real time, the story spreading beyond Riverside's borders. Officer Morrison's radio crackled with an urgent message. "All units, we have media arriving on scene. Maintain order, but avoid escalation." As if summoned by the radio transmission, a news van from the Grand Rapids television station rounded the corner, its satellite antenna extending toward the sky. Marcus recognized the reporter who emerged, Sarah Kim, who'd covered education issues across the region. "Mr. Williams," Sarah called out as her cameraman began setting up equipment. "Can you tell us what's happening here tonight?" Before Marcus could answer, Thompson stepped forward, his hand raised toward the camera. "No media. This is a private security matter." Sarah Kim's expression hardened. "Sir, we're on a public street covering a public event. You have no authority to prevent us from filming." "That's right," shouted someone from the crowd. "This is America. We have a right to know what's happening." The confrontation was spiraling beyond anyone's control. Marcus could see the fear in Officer Morrison's eyes, the uncertainty in the security guard's posture, the anger building in the crowd. This was exactly what he'd hoped to avoid. "Everyone, please," Marcus said, raising his hands. "Let's not let this turn into something that hurts our community. We're all neighbors here." But his words were drowned out by the arrival of another news van, this one from Detroit, followed by a car full of protesters from the university, who'd driven over after seeing the social media posts. "This is what voter suppression looks like," chanted the college students. "Democracy denied, justice delayed." Marcus watched the scene unfolding around him with a mixture of gratitude and horror. These people believed in him, believed in the democratic process, believed that what was happening was wrong. But he also knew that every minute this continued, every chant and every confrontation was exactly what his opponents wanted. Inside the community center, the debate was wrapping up. Through the glass doors, Marcus could see Mayor Hendricks shaking hands with the moderator, smiling for the cameras, projecting the image of a leader who'd shown up while her opponent had not. "Marcus," Jennifer said urgently, holding up her phone, "I just got a call from Channel 7 in Detroit. They want to do a live interview with you about what happened tonight." "And CNN is retweeting the video," Kevin Park added. "This is going national." Marcus felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. 20 years of teaching had prepared him for many things, but not for this. Not for becoming the center of a national conversation about voting rights and racial justice. "Mr. Williams," Sarah Kim called out, her cameraman now filming. "For viewers who are just joining us, can you explain what happened here tonight?" Marcus looked into the camera, thinking about his daughter watching from her dorm room, about his students who would see this tomorrow, about the community he'd served for 2 decades. He thought about the lesson he was teaching in this moment, about the example he was setting. "What happened tonight is that the democratic process was interrupted," he said. "I came here to participate in a debate that the people of Riverside deserve to see. Instead, I was prevented from entering by security guards who claim to be following procedures that don't exist." "Do you believe this was racially motivated?" Sarah asked. Marcus paused, looking around at the crowd of supporters, at the police officers, at the security guards who were still blocking the entrance. "I believe that when a black candidate is prevented from participating in a public forum without any legitimate justification, we have to ask hard questions about why that happened." The crowd cheered again, but Marcus held up his hand for quiet. "More importantly, I believe that the people of Riverside deserve better than this. They deserve to hear from all the candidates. They deserve to make informed decisions about their future." As he spoke, Marcus noticed a familiar face emerging from the community center. It was Eleanor Washington, the president of the local League of Women Voters chapter, looking flustered and angry. "Marcus," Eleanor called out, pushing through the crowd. "I am so sorry about this. I had no idea these security guards were out here." "Eleanor, what's going on?" Marcus asked. "I just found out that Mayor Hendricks' campaign contacted the HOA this morning and requested additional security," Eleanor said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "They claimed there were threats against the candidates." The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place with sickening clarity. "What kind of threats?" he asked. "That's just it," Eleanor replied. "When I asked the HOA for details, they said they didn't have any. They just received a call from someone claiming to represent your campaign, saying there might be trouble." "My campaign." Marcus's voice rose in disbelief. "We never made any such call." Jennifer stepped forward, her phone in her hand. "I can prove it. Here's our call log from today. We made calls to the League of Women Voters, to the community center about setup, to the local newspaper. Nothing to the HOA." Sarah Kim's cameraman was capturing every word. "Are you saying someone impersonated the Williams campaign to create a pretext for enhanced security?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Eleanor replied. "And I'm going to get to the bottom of this. The League of Women Voters has been hosting nonpartisan forums for 70 years. We will not be used as a tool for voter suppression." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Marcus could see the anger in people's faces, transforming into something else: determination, solidarity, a shared commitment to protecting the democratic process. "This is election interference," shouted Angela Foster. "This is exactly what federal voting rights laws are designed to prevent." Officer Morrison was speaking urgently into her radio, trying to get guidance from her superiors. Marcus could see the conflict in her face, the recognition that this situation had grown far beyond a simple crowd control issue. "Officer Morrison," Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice calm but firm. "You have a choice to make here. You can continue to support this charade, or you can help us restore the democratic process." "Ma'am, I'm just trying to keep the peace," Morrison replied. "The peace was broken when these guards prevented a legitimate candidate from participating in a public forum." "Dr. Rodriguez shot back. "You can help restore it by ensuring that all candidates have equal access." Marcus watched the exchange with growing awareness that this moment was bigger than his campaign, bigger than Riverside, bigger than a local mayoral election. This was about the fundamental principles of democracy, about whether the system would work for everyone or just for those with the power to manipulate it. "I want to make something clear," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the crowd noise. "This isn't about me. This is about all of us. This is about whether we're going to accept that some people's voices matter more than others." "That's right," called out Maria Santos. "We came here tonight to hear from all the candidates. We have a right to make informed decisions." By now, the crowd had grown to over 200 people, spilling into the street and forcing the police to redirect traffic. Marcus could see reporters from multiple news organizations, protesters from the university, longtime residents of Riverside, and supporters who'd driven from other towns. "This is what democracy looks like," chanted the college students. "This is what democracy looks like." Eleanor Washington had been working her phone, making calls to League of Women Voters leadership, to the mayor's office, to anyone who might have answers. She approached Marcus with a grim expression. "I just spoke with the State League president," Eleanor said. "They're launching an immediate investigation. They're also recommending that we reschedule the debate for next week with proper security protocols." "Next week might be too late," Marcus replied. "The story tomorrow will be about my absence tonight. People will assume I was afraid to debate." "Then we make sure that's not the story," Jennifer said firmly. "We make sure the story is about election interference and voter suppression." As if on cue, Marcus's phone began ringing. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but the area code was from Washington. D.C. "Mr. Williams." The voice on the other end was professional, urgent. "This is Janet Rodriguez from the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. We're monitoring the situation in Riverside tonight. Can you tell us what happened?" Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. In the space of 2 hours, his local campaign had become a federal civil rights issue. "Agent Rodriguez, I'd be happy to tell you everything I know." As he spoke with the Justice Department representative, Marcus could see the crowd around him growing more organized, more determined. Dr. Rodriguez was talking with other community leaders about next steps. Angela Foster was documenting everything for potential legal action. The college students were coordinating social media campaigns. "Mr. Williams," Agent Rodriguez said, "we're going to need you to preserve all documentation related to tonight's events. We're also going to need contact information for witnesses." "I can provide that," Marcus replied. "But, Agent Rodriguez, I need to ask what happens to the election. We're 3 weeks away from voting." "That's still being determined," Rodriguez replied. "But I can tell you that the federal government takes election interference very seriously, regardless of the level of the race." When Marcus ended the call, he found himself surrounded by reporters, cameras, and supporters. The scene looked like something from a major political event, not a local mayoral debate in a small Michigan town. Marcus called out a familiar voice. It was his daughter Maya, who had driven 3 hours from college after watching the livestream. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart," Marcus replied, embracing his daughter. "But I'm worried about what this means for our community." "What this means," Maya said firmly, "is that people are finally paying attention. Do you know how many people are watching this? Do you know how many people are sharing your story?" Marcus looked around at the crowd, at the cameras, at the community he'd served for 20 years. He thought about the lesson he'd tried to teach his students about civic engagement, about the importance of participating in democracy, even when it was difficult. "What happens now?" he asked Eleanor Washington. "Now we demand answers," Eleanor replied. "We demand accountability, and we make sure this never happens again." The crowd began to disperse slowly, but not before organizing. Dr. Rodriguez announced a community meeting for the next evening. Angela Foster distributed cards with legal aid information. The college students coordinated plans for ongoing protests and social media campaigns. "This isn't over," Marcus told the remaining crowd. "In fact, this is just the beginning. We're going to make sure that every voice in Riverside is heard, that every vote counts, that democracy works for everyone." As the crowd finally began to thin, Marcus stood in the parking lot of the community center, looking at the building where he should have spent the evening debating policy and vision. Instead, he'd spent it fighting for the basic right to participate in the democratic process. "You know what?" Jennifer said, her voice tired but determined. "I think tonight might have been better than any debate." "How do you figure?" Marcus asked. "Because tonight, people saw who you really are. They saw you standing up for democracy, fighting for everyone's right to participate. That's worth more than any policy position." Marcus nodded, but he was thinking about the long road ahead, the federal investigation, the rescheduled debate, the election that was now just 3 weeks away. He was thinking about the community he loved and the changes that might be coming. Most of all, he was thinking about the lesson he'd inadvertently taught tonight, that democracy isn't just about voting. It's about vigilance. It's about community. It's about standing up when the process is threatened. 3 weeks later, Marcus Williams would win the mayoral election by the largest margin in Riverside's history. The HOA security company would lose its contracts with the city. Federal charges would be filed against 2 individuals for election interference, and the community would be stronger for having faced the test of its democratic values. But that night, standing in the parking lot of the community center, Marcus Williams was just a teacher who'd learned something new about democracy, about his community, and about the power of people who refuse to accept that some voices matter more than others.